Hey, Scott Austin here. In this video, I'm going to explain to you a little bit about the photos. You have the question of, well, if I put big photos in, won't it kill the performance of my site? And the answer is no, not at all. And I'll explain that to you here. Um, so here's your existing product for the patchwork mini skirt. And it's got the two big images that you added, and then a whole bunch of the smaller ones, and it's hard to see in this half screen because I'm trying to show something over here. But let's just go to this, right? So there's the small images, and the bigger ones are in here somewhere. Like that one's a bigger one, but it's hard to tell on this screen size that we're in. But that said, let's just go here, put this in a half thing, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to inspect. So we got that window open over here, and I'm going to refresh the page. So I'm going to show the network traffic for all the downloaded files. So let's go to here. I'm going to hit a shift and refresh, which is a hard refresh. So it should override the cache and download almost every single entity on this page. And this is the existing page, right? Patchwork miniskirt. You'll notice here we've downloaded 8.7 megabytes of resources, and it took 4.49 seconds. So it's 4.5 seconds. And if I filter this by just images, and I sort them by size, the largest at the top, you'll see that this image here is 183K. And this image here is, whatever that size was a second ago, 89K. So there's one file at 183, and the rest of them are much smaller, all under 100K, right? And this one here, just so you know, you can see here in the URL, right? And this is the important part with Shopify and this theme, is the original source for this file is the 1380 by 1800 or whatever bigger one you made for it, right? But what Shopify is doing is it's getting the 600K version of the file, a 600 pixel version of the file. And that 600 pixel version ends up being 180K, where the source one, and I actually pulled this down here, right? So here's the source one of that, and it's 549K for the 1320 by 1980. But Shopify says, I don't need a file that big for right here. And you'll notice this image is the one that's showing up here. So it pulls down a 600 pixel version of that file, which Shopify does on the back end and the theme does on the back end. The theme says, I don't need the big photo, give me the 600 pixel version. Shopify slices all the photos up in all these different sizes, and so it goes, here's the 600 pixel version. So here, the largest photo you have on this page, which is only 180K, even though the full size one of this is like 450K, it's 600K. And now you'll notice all the other ones, and you can see in the URL, right? It says 300X, that means 300 pixels, 300 pixels, 300 pixels. Those are all the thumbnails. So the page doesn't pull down all the photos it needs to go through the carousel. Now, if I click this button here, what should happen here, and I might need to refresh the page or something, I'm not sure, is I should see another 600X image, because now it's pulled down the 600X image of this. And then if I go here and open up the carousel, there we go. There you can see it's asking for the full size one, the 2048, which is in Shopify's full size. It's not the full size of the image. It's saying Shopify, give me the biggest version of this that you have. And as I scroll through, more of them will show up. So it's only calling the bigger versions of the photo when it needs them, right? So this means there's no impact on loading up the page, even though you have big photos in the carousel. Only people that go into the carousel are gonna, but they get downloaded one at a time. So it's super performant. Now, remember we had, it was like 8.9 megabytes or something like that. And as we keep load, this will keep updating. It was like 8.9 megabytes, 4.5 seconds, right? So here, what I did is I took the same product and duplicated it. And I called it demo. and I replaced all of the photos. I'm not going to scroll through them. I'll scroll through now and then we'll refresh the page, right? So what I did is I made square versions of the photos. So you'll also notice, here where because you have these portrait versions, it's down below the fold of the screen here, right? But because I made all mine square, they're much more viewable here without having to scroll up and down. And let me show you here. So I actually made 8 photos because there's 8 photos in the original one. I just took 2 of the photos, the 2 big ones you had, and made them 4 different versions, and I rotated them so you could actually see they are separate files, right? So we're going to be loading these 8 product photos are in this demo version, but you'll notice I added white space, and it's actually a little bit off of white space because it matches the background color of your website. And that's why here you can't tell that there's white space added because it matches the background, right? So it's a nice smooth experience. And on landscape images, I add the white on the top and the bottom, and it's actually a little bit off white. And on portrait images, I add it on the side. But that means as we go through this carousel, the height here never changes, right? Which is nice and clean experience. Here where we've got different aspect ratios and it's hard to see, it'll bounce up and down here, right? Yeah, you can see this one's a little bit thinner, so it actually goes down, so it bounces up and down. So I like making all the product images square. It's a nice compromise between desktop and phone. Now, that said, if you want to make them all portrait, that's totally fine as long as they're all the same aspect ratio, and that will prevent that bouncing we saw on the other page. Now, here we are on the demo page. This has got 8 files, and these 8 files, let me just go back to here, right? So the 2 files that I downloaded from Shopify that you uploaded as the bigger ones, right? One of them was 424K, the other was 549K. The total together is 974K. I took this image, added the off-white spacing to the side to make it a full 1980 by 1980, so it's square, saved it at 75 quality, and that took the original that goes into Shopify down to 391K, where yours was at 424K. So a little bit smaller because I saved it at a 75% quality, but it's also got more pixels in it, right? And this one here is 549, adding the little off-white space, it's down to 490. And then if we look at all 8 of these together, right, that's a total of 3.4 megs, but we're not going to be calling that 3.4 megs when we load up a page because it's going to ask for the smaller versions of them. So let's go back to here. Now I'm going to refresh this page with a little shift key again, shift refresh. And I'm watching this here. 8.1 megabytes, which is actually less than the megabytes of the files on the other page. It's not by much, but a little bit. And 4.65 seconds. And every time we run this, the numbers will be a little different just because that's the way the network works. But basically, it's the exact same download time. 4.65 and 4.5 are the same in my mind, right? The 8.1 megabytes is a little bit less, but the other one was, I think, 8 point something, like 8.8 or 8.9, but around the same ballpark, right? But here, you'll notice when I go to media, just select the files, or images, sorry, sort this by size with the largest at the top, right? 85.1 is this file here because this is 600 by 600 square. The one we were using before on this page, right, I'm just going to refresh the page. It asked for the 600 wide version, 600 pixels wide, but that ends up being taller than 600 because it's portrait. So it's actually like, 600 by 800 or 600 by 900, whatever it ends up being. So this file is actually a larger number of, bytes, file size, than this file because they're both 600 wide, but one is 600 wide and one is 800 tall and one is 600 tall. So this one takes more, and that's why this was, remember, this was like 180 kilobytes or something like that, where this one here we just saw, is 80, 86 or 85 kilobytes, so much smaller. That's why this product with all larger original size photos actually is smaller in initial page load than this one, which is kind of crazy, right? But that's just the way the thing works, right? And then if I open up the carousel, right, that's when it's going to start calling up the 2048 versions, right? So now it's starting to ask for the bigger versions, right? And you can see this one's 377K, this one's 535K. And you can see them all loading up here. But they only load when the customer asks for them. And you can see there's no lag at all dragging down another photo 500K. That's not a big deal at all, right? So this is why, hopefully this explains it, why you can actually totally put in larger originals and it won't affect your performance at all, right? It's just wonderful. And that's because this theme and Shopify working together are calling smaller versions of the file and only calling larger versions of the file when it needs them. So hopefully that gives you a lot more comfort about putting in larger resolution. And let's just go here, right? Let me go full screen and do this, right? So now these images, are much larger, better looking, clearer. Even though on this one here, it's going to stretch them to be that same size. The pixel, we're actually stretching these photos a little bit, I think, if I remember correctly, to get them to show like this. So you'll have the ability to, have better looking images, and then people can zoom in on them, and that, they can do this, right, kind of stuff, and not lose resolution. Where if I do that here, I actually don't know if I can. Oh, it won't let me zoom in because it's already showing it at the max resolution, right? So there we go. And it's hard to see. I don't see the difference in these, but it is there. So you should feel comfortable. In other words, the whole summary of this, you should feel comfortable putting in larger images, and compressing that 75 quality, because Shopify and the theme, especially the theme, right? Shopify does it on the back end, but not every theme does it on the front end. But this theme does a fabulous job in only calling the files it needs in the right sizes to improve the performance of the page. So hopefully that helps, and I will talk to you later.